Hey guys, so in this video we're going to be working on the account section of the website. I probably just want to display just some user information. So basically the first name, the last name, the MyFitnessPal username, and the user's email address. And I kind of want to make it look similar to the dashboard. So we're not going to have a left and right section. I just want it to have some padding on the top and the left-hand side. And I just want to have the back card. So let's actually just implement that first. So we'll go to the code. In dashboard.js, you see we've got the first div which has the dashboard background that does have the padding associated with it. And then we have the next div, which is the actual card that's imported from the Materialize CSS library. And then we also have our dashboard background card class as well. That just has some extra padding and it's also got a different color. So let's actually just copy those two divs, paste them into the account page, and hit save. And we'll go to the website. Yeah, cool. So we got the padding on the top and the left and the right. The card itself is not expanded, but as soon as we start putting information into that card, it's going to start filling up the page. So let's go to the code. And before we actually start inputting the, I suppose the UI, let's actually input we're going to need a state value. And inside this state value, we're going to need a first name. Let's just call it John. And then we'll also need a last name. We'll call it Smith. We'll need the user's email address. So we're just going to write email and we'll go johnsmith@gmail.com. And we're also going to need the user's MyFitnessPal link. So we'll go FitnessPal username, not their link, sorry. And we're going to just we'll just type username for now. So these here are actually just display values. Eventually, we're going to be using these state values here to integrate with the database to actually display the user's information. But for now, we're just putting in temporary dummy data. So that's fine. Let's actually start inputting the information now in the return section. So if we go to materializecss.com and you search for the word input and just select the text input section, we're probably going to have it like what we've got here. So you've got see how you see the first name and then your last name here. So you kind of got a value on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So I'm probably going to have the left-hand side be a disabled value where it's actually just going to show the user's information. And the right-hand side is going to be the editable value. So you'll be able to edit the information which will populate on the left-hand side. So if we go to the code, we're going to implement a new div and we're going to give it a class name, and that's of row. And then inside, what happened here? Inside this div, we're going to, I believe it's the form actually. So we need to make the form. We're going to give it a class name of column small 12. So what I'm typing here, guys, just so you know, so we've got class name row and col small 12. If you go back to the Materialize CSS website, I'm not just making that up. I'm actually memorizing it. It's from here. So we need to write out basically this information just here to get us what we're seeing on the page right now. So we've created the row, we've created the form, which is displaying the column values as a small 12, and we're going to continue inputting this information here. So inside this form, we're going to make another div with a class name of row. And then inside this row, we're going to give another div with a class name, and this one's going to be the input field with a column of size 6. Awesome. So we're going to just duplicate that because we want to have two columns the size of 6 totaling the size of 12 inside the singular row. So now inside this one is where we actually start to enter some information. So we're going to pop the input field. Now, the first input field on the left-hand side, I want to be a read-only value. So Materialize CSS have a read-only value as an option, so we can just type in read-only. And then we're going to also make it disabled, so you can't edit it at all. So we're going to type the word disabled. And then we're going to give it an ID value of first name disabled. We're going to give it a value as the actual value we want to show is going to be this to get the information inside this class. We're going to get the state value that's inside this class, and we're going to grab the first name from the state object that we have inside the class. So this one just here. So whatever value is listed on the first name state is going to display in this read-only field. We're going to give it a type of text. We also need to give it a class name of validate. That's just what the Materialize CSS library has. It requires that class. And it can just have a closing tag on the end. Whoop. There we go. Now underneath the input field, we're going to require a label. So let's just type label. We're going to go, I think it's HTML4 equals, and the same ID value, so first name disabled. Yep. With a class name. So we need to write class name active here, and I'll just show you in a second why. And then we're going to close that, and we're just going to write first name. So before I do anything else, I'm just going to hit save. And we're going to go to the website. So you see how we've got first name listed up here. Now, when you have the, I'll just minimize this. When you have the active class just here, so class name active associated with the label, when the label is active, it actually shifts above the input field. So what happens is the class actually becomes active when you start entering information into the input field. So if I get rid of the class name active and just hit save, and then go back to the website, you can see how it's kind of joined the label and the information that I'm displaying in the disabled input field. So I don't want that. So we're just going to put that back there. Class name active. And there we go. That looks a lot nicer. So we'll go back to the code now, and we're going to input the second div field. So let's just copy what we've done, paste it in. And this one's obviously not going to be disabled. So get rid of the word read only, get rid of the word disabled. The ID value is going to be first name, and the HTML4 is going to be first name as well. Again, with this ID value, I want the ID first name to match the state value, which also says first name as well. And we're going to come back to that shortly. I don't want it to display any information, so we're also going to get rid of the value field as well. And I think that's fine for now. So we're just going to write edit first name and hit save. Go back to the website. Awesome. So we're displaying the first name, which is John, and we can edit the first name just on the right hand side over here. Cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the rest of these for the rest of the values. So inside this form, let's actually just copy this row a couple of times. So this one here, we'll just do one at a time. This one here is going to be the last name. We're going to edit last name. We're going to change the ID value to last name disabled, and just the HTML4 for last name disabled as well. The value we want to show is this. So again, inside this class, inside the state value, we want to show the last name. And then inside the second column, we want to change it as well. So the ID will be last name, HTML4 will be last name. We'll hit save. We'll go back into the code. Awesome. So now we've got last name, first name. So now that's showing the state information, and we can edit them both. Awesome. So we're going to copy the row again. And this one here, we're probably going to do the, I think the MyFitnessPal link. Yeah, we'll do the MyFitnessPal. So the MyFitnessPal username, sorry. So let's just copy that. With the read only, yeah, keep it read only with disabled. And we're going to change the HTML4 to MyFitnessPal username disabled. Same thing with the ID value disabled. And we're going to type MyFitnessPal username. And we're going to change the direct value to this .state I think it was MyFitnessPal username. Yep. And then in the bottom div, we're going to change the ID to FitnessPal username and HTML4 to FitnessPal username. Again, these values here matching the name of the state value. That's very important. Cool. And we're going to type edit username. Awesome. Let's have a look and see how that looks. Awesome. So we're almost there. I think we just need to show the user's email address. I'm not going to allow the user to change their email address. It's probably something that you can implement yourself. We're not going to do that in this instance. So let's just create a separate div underneath here with a class name. Yep. Input field column small with a size of 12. And inside here, we're going to, maybe we want it to be a disabled value. So let's just copy one of the disabled examples that we've got and paste it in there. So in the input read only disabled ID, we want to make the ID email disabled. The HTML4 will be email disabled. We're going to write email, and we're going to grab the value from this .state.email, and we'll hit save. We'll go back. Yeah, awesome. So now I can see the email address of the user. I can see the first name, last name, and MyFitnessPal username. So now I think we should give the ability to change the state information when we enter the information on the right-hand side. So let's go back to the account.javascript file. I believe this will be just outside the render function, underneath the state object. Kind of what we did for the signup.js, how we kind of have the changing of the value and what happens when you submit the form. We're going to do a similar thing with the account page. So let's make a new function called change. We're going to pass in a value. It's going to be an arrow function. There we go. And kind of like what we did before, we're going to grab this .set state. What have I done there? There we go. This .set state, and we're going to grab the value that's passed in .target .id based off the value .target .value. So kind of like what happened in the previous videos, what we're going to do is when the user starts typing inside the edit first name or inside one of the input fields that's editable, we're going to call this function every time a change is made. It's going to pass in the current value from the input field, and it's going to grab the ID value from that input field. It's going to match it up with the state value. So for example, first name, if we make any change here, it's going to pass in the value of ID first name. It's going to check that we've got a state based off the value first name, and it's going to set that state to the ID value passed in, which is first name. So that's what we've done. We'll leave that as that is. We then want to do something when the user wants to update information. So we're going to make a new function called update details. It's going to be an arrow function. And in here, for now, we're just going to console.log this .state. Eventually, this function, we're going to code the ability to actually send the information back to the database and actually update the user's information on their account. But for this video, we're just going to display the state information to the console. So let's go to, we're almost done. So let's actually go back to the form. And I believe just in here, we need to call inside the input field, we need to call what happens. So on change, every time a change is made to this input field, we actually want to just run this where is it? Change. So we're going to copy that. And we want to do the same thing for all the other input fields. So we want to do it for the, we want to do it for the last name. And just make sure when you're doing this, you're not doing it for the disabled input field because we're not typing any information into there. We want it to make sure it's done for the one that we're actually editing. So it should be the bottom div out of the rows that we've got just here. So yeah, cool. On change. In the MyFitnessPal username input, on change, we'll run that function. And the email is going to be left as it is. We'll now need to actually add a button as well to update that information. So just below, I believe just below the form, let's just add a button. When we click this button, we want to run the this.update details function that we've created just up here. So that's fine. We then want to give it a class name of waves effect, waves light, and a class name of button. So these classes just here, again, are the materialized CSS classes that we implemented at the very start of the series. This just makes the button look a lot nicer than the standard default buttons that come in HTML. So let's then close that and we'll call it update details. Yep, and we'll hit save. Before we go back to the page, we just need to make sure we implement at the top our CSS file that we've got. So import views.css and hit save. We'll go back to the website. Yeah, cool. So I can see we've got the first name, last name, username, and email address. Now, the button looks nice in the left-hand corner. I'm just going to kind of make it look similar to the rest of our site, and I'm going to expand this button to the right-hand side and make it cover the whole page. So to do that, we're just going to go into the button and we're going to add one more class, and this class is going to be called sign in button. So it's kind of what we did for the sign in page. Inside our views.css file, we do have a class name called sign in button, and it just gives the button a value of its width 100%. So we go back to the website. Cool. So we've got the update details, we put the username, we've got everything just here. And if I change edit first name, so hello, last name will be Smith, and then username will be, well, username 123. And if I go right click and inspect element, and we go to the console, and I hit the update details, I think it's meant to, what's happening there? Should be logging to the console. Let's have a look. We'll go back to account.js. On click is this.update details. Because update details has a capital U. So I wasn't actually calling the function. So we'll go back to the website. Let's just refresh the page. So we're going to type again, hello, Smith, username 123, update details. Cool. Again, for now, if you actually refresh the page, it's obviously going to go back to the default values because we're not actually saving those state values. We're just changing them. When we actually do hit the update details button, we are going to push a request to a database to change that information. And because we're going to be actually setting the state values to the database values, they will actually save. So if you did refresh it at that particular time, the information will be there. But for now, we're just kind of set everything up to get everything going forward. But for now, that's all we've done. It's just to get an idea of the account page, and we're just setting up the UI to get it all working for our future videos. So for now, that's all we're going to do. Awesome. If you've got any questions, just chuck them at the bottom of the video. I will do my best to get back to everyone. Otherwise, I will see you back in the next video.